Good evening, everyone. My name is Kim Riley. I am the Vice President of Enrollment Management here at Maine Maritime. So I'm just looking to see who's coming in. I think we're going to have a little over 30 participants. So I'm going to let everyone get in, make sure we've got everyone logged in, and then we'll kind of start our conversation about financial aid. And I've got some questions here that have been sent in, so we'll make sure we get some of those questions answered for everyone. And there is a chat feature, just so you know, that's on the webinar here. So if you want to send the chat feature, any questions that you have, you can also submit those directly to me, and I'll be answering those throughout the course of the evening, trying to make sure that we incorporate those into the process tonight as well. I'm just going to give it a few more seconds here. And what I'll do is, if people continue to join, I will do a recap as we kind of close the webinar. So if anyone comes in a little bit later, if anyone knows of anyone that may be joining a little bit later, we'll kind of go over what we discussed, a quick recap of everything. So I'm going to go ahead and get started and say welcome to the conversation this evening. As I said, my name is Kim Riley. I am the Vice President of Enrollment Management and Marketing here at MMA, and I'm happy to be here with you this evening and kind of go through some of the financial aid process and what you can expect, whether you're applying here through MMA or another institution, whatever you may be doing, just talk about the financial aid process. So the first thing I'll say is that financial aid at the institution, the thing you do first is complete your free application for federal student aid. And so that application is going to get you into and get you access to the federal aid programs. So those aid programs include the federal Pell Grant. There's also a federal Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant, quite often called the SEOG. You'll hear it referred to as the SEOG grant. Also student loans. So there are Stafford loans that are given at a little bit of a reduced rate. There are also parent loans that you can take out through the federal government that have some repayment terms, different repayment terms and things like that they offer to students. And then also federal work study. So we're going to talk a little bit about each of those programs as we kind of go on. But the other piece of financial aid, if you're in the state of Maine, I have a couple of questions here from people who are in different states, and we'll talk a little bit about the grant programs in those states. But there are state grant programs as well. And what you want to remember with that is that you have to file your FAFSA every year. So you're going to file in October, November, December, January. You want to get that filed. And you're filing, you want to make sure you're filing on time, because sometimes the state grant programs have deadlines for which you have to apply. And so if your application doesn't come in enough time, then you may lose out on those state grant funds. So you just want to make sure that you're filing in a timely manner with those funds. The other piece that we're going to do, and I just want to go over this really quickly, is we're going to send out to everyone, even for those of you who are not in the state of Maine. This is a FAME, which is the Finance Authority of Maine. This is their lifetime learning kit. And so I think we checked everyone's records to make sure that we had an address on file. If we don't have a good address for you, then we'll be in touch with you tomorrow to find out where we should send this. But one of the things they tell you when you start this process is to have a little folder to keep all of your papers and everything that you have to do with your financing, all that in one of these folders. So this is going to come out to you. And in the folder, there's information on preparing for higher education, managing your money. There's different information out here about different resources and different booklets. There's lots of great information that's put together by the state of Maine And then we've also put a couple of resources in here specific to Maine Maritime. So in the different programs that are offered, as well as our tuition and budgeting sheets and all that. So you're going to get this in the mail from us. This will be sent out to you from our financial aid office, along with the contact information for individuals in our financial aid office. So when you get this, if you have any additional questions or after you file your FAFSA, you have questions, you can reach out to them and have a conversation about your financial aid or anything specific. So sometimes people own their own business, or they have, different tax scenarios and things like that they want to have a specific conversation with financial aid about. And that's, start with this, and then we'll have those conversations with you as we kind of go on throughout your journey with us. So the other piece I want to talk about is that there's the federal, which is filed through the FAFSA for financial aid. Talked a little bit about the fact that there's also state grant money typically available. And then there's also college funding that may be available via scholarships. There's also outside scholarships that are available. And the other thing that we're going to do, and I made a note of this, is we're going to email tomorrow the links to, which is also in this packet. There's information about those scholarships in this packet. But there are a number of outside scholarship agencies, kind of scholarship aggregators, if you will, that will pull together all these scholarships. And then you go in and create a profile and you put your information in there, and then it helps you determine what scholarships you may be eligible for. And it will kind of push those applications to you, and you can start filling those out to see if you might be eligible from them. The other thing I'd like to tell students is talk to your employers, your parents' employers, talk to different agencies and organizations in your area, whether it's like the local Moose Lodge or different areas. A lot of times your high school guidance counselors can give you that information as well about local scholarships that you can apply for. Sometimes those scholarships will be given directly to the students to then turn around and pay their bill, or it will come to the school and we'll process that for you directly onto your payment for your tuition bill. So those are the scholarship information, and then the college information. And again, you're going to file the FAFSA. It's the only application that you need to file. We'll send you the link in the email as well for how to access the FAFSA. Student aid, federal student aid actually has a lot of really good resources. There's an 800 number that's available on the website that you can call and get in touch with them if, while you're filing the FAFSA, you have questions. They're typically open until midnight Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Thursday. I think they're open until around 5 o'clock on Fridays. And then during the peak season, sometimes they'll have individuals available on the weekends as well when you're filing. So if you're filling that out and you have questions of the FAFSA, you can go to the federal student aid and actually ask them directly if you're having any questions. Do not ever pay a fee to process the FAFSA. There are websites that you can go to that look like fafsa.ed.gov. Be careful. If you're asked to pay to file the FAFSA, you should not have to pay for this. This is a free resource, and it's part of the Department of Education, the Federal Department of Education, that they provide this application and this processing for students to then determine your eligibility for federal student aid. As part of the process, you're going to get a PIN that is specific to you and to the student and to the parent, and that is how you will sign your FAFSA and go back into your FAFSA every year to file. If you forget your PIN or you lose your PIN, don't worry, there are processes in place that you can get back into the system if you need to. So a lot of times over the course of a year, there's a lot going on and that happens, so don't worry about that, but you'll go out and register for a PIN. You will need your tax information, so you kind of make sure that you have that information, asset information, all that before you sit down to do the FAFSA. And then once you file the FAFSA, you're going to add MMA's school code, and the information will be sent to the school, and the school will determine your eligibility for the federal student aid, as well as the Maine state aid if you are a resident of Maine. So all that comes in, and we do all that through our office here. And then again, private scholarships, we have that information out there for you. And then we will also help you if you're looking to take out parent loans, plus loans, or alternative loans. So it's really a very easy process, not anything to be intimidated by. It can be, it's a form, you're going to go online. They try to simplify it over the years to make it a little bit easier and more intuitive for parents and students. Probably one of the biggest things that we errors that we see when people are filing the FAFSA is just make sure that you're putting the student information in the students area, including the social security number, and then you're doing the same thing for the parents. So make sure that you're putting that information in there, because that can sometimes, especially if we're trying to bring the record in and match it up with the student record in-house, sometimes that can be a problem. We've got to go out and then kind of make those updates and those changes. But again, it's I think it's a not super easy process, but it's a fairly easy process for families, and it gives them access to, again, those federal and those state dollars, and that comes into us and we do that processing. So one of the things I'm going to do, and again, if you have any questions while I'm talking, feel free to put that in the chat, and I'll read the question out for everyone and get those answers. One of the things I'm going to do is we actually asked for some questions before this evening, and so I'm going to work my way through some of these questions and answer some of the questions for those of you that are on the call. So the first is, does the SAT affect getting a financial aid award for the students? And the question is actually specifically asking about for an international student, but I'm gonna address it as it applies to all students. So the SAT does not impact your federal financial aid or anything that you're filing for federal. It doesn't impact anything for state. For your institutional aid, potentially depending on the institution, the merit aid may be determined based on the SAT. So one of the proposals that we have for this year, and there's quite a few questions in here about merit. So one of the proposals that we have for this year is that we're just going to be looking at the GPA because we've gone to the test optional. So that's one of the things that we're looking at as we're putting together our merit proposal for merit scholarships for the institution for this year. And somebody's just asked a question, so let's see what's on here really quick. So is there a maximum financial aid I can get, or how much is it? So there is a maximum in terms of the federal Pell Grant. The federal Pell Grant is determined based on need. And so I think this year the allocation is around $6,800 for the year. And that's renewable when you redo your FAFSA. So you will get that your freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, you would get the $6,800. Now, typically they increase it a couple $100 every year on the Pell Grant. Again, that's awarded based on needs, so not everyone gets that award. And then there are loan limits depending on what year in school you are. So are you a dependent student, which means that you're filing with your parents' information, or are you an independent student, which means you're over the age of 24, you're an adult student, that type of thing. So there are limits in terms of the student loans that you can take out. But then there are also, for dependent students, there are plus loans and things that you can take out. So at this point, the proposal, so the question is, will you consider SAT scores at all for merit if the student has that? So at this point, the proposal, like I said, is to look at just the GPA. SAT scores can be submitted. We ask you to submit that. So there's a possibility that we will do that. This is a conversation. Let's go ahead and talk about merit here a little bit. So this is a conversation we're having right now. As a state institution, one of the things that we have to do is we have to submit our proposal for merit scholarships and how we're going to be doing that awarding. And then it has to be looked at in terms of our overall budget process and then kind of signed off on by finance and by our board of trustees. So we are in the process of doing that right now. One of the things we are looking at is we're looking at how many SATs and test scores we received, whether that test score would impact the potential for a merit award or whether we would give the same to a student based on their GPA. So that's what I'm in the process of doing and we're working on right now this week, and then we will do that submission next week. So in terms of, because some of the questions are on here about when students should be hearing about merit. So we've been telling everyone by the end of October. And so that is our goal, that we're trying to get that out and have that information available to students. And we'll know what the awarding process will be for those merit scholarships. Let's see. Yes, so will everyone on this call receive that packet that you showed a few minutes ago? Yes, absolutely. So we have, and we checked before we got on the call tonight, we have everyone's addresses. If for some reason we don't have an address or we don't have a complete address, then we will reach out to you tomorrow, either via phone or email or both, to make sure that we have that. But everyone on this call is going to get that packet along with the contact information for the financial aid team so that once you receive it or once you file your FAFSA, you've got the contact information to reach out to the financial aid office. So we'll send that to you. So the GPA, so the question is, will the GPA be from the senior year or a combination of the junior and senior year? So typically, the GPA that's reported is your final GPA or the GPA at the time that you've done your application. And so typically what happens with merit awards is that, let's say the student submits at the beginning, they apply at the beginning of their senior year, and their GPA is, let's say, a 3.2. And they are qualify for this level of merit award. And then at the end of their senior year, when they get their final transcript, their GPA has gone up to, let's say, a 3.4, a 3.3. It's somehow increased a little bit. Students will have the ability or should have the ability to submit information on that change in high school GPA so that we can then reevaluate them and see if there's an eligibility for an additional merit. We'll definitely take a look at that. So that's typically the process when you're looking at and utilizing GPAs for the merit awarding. Are merit scholarships for all students or only students remain? So merit scholarship, so that would be for all students. So we categorize for tuition purposes, students are either Maine in-state students, they're part of the regional, which is the NERSC regional in the Northeast, or they are out of state. So they're coming from Florida, Texas, California. So that's kind of how we organize those students. And there will be merit scholarships. The proposal is for each of those categories, there will be merit scholarships for those students. Let's see. Does that mean that all merit scholarships will be awarded by end of October? So I will tell you that I think the decision in terms of how we're going to be processing merit scholarships will be made by the end of October. I don't know that they will all be awarded, but what will happen is that we have students in the pipeline right now that have already been applied, admitted, deposited. So we're going to start with those students. So the students that are kind of there will be doing those processing. That's how we'll process that. And that's the process that we'll go through. I don't know how long it will take us to get those awards on the system and have those available. And like I said, we have to go through the whole approval process for merits and make sure that all that gets approved. But by the end of October, we should be able to be in touch with students to let you know. And I know a number of you have been speaking with our admissions representatives here on campus, with Kate and Elizabeth in particular, wanting to know the merit process and when it will be. And so Kate and Elizabeth have that list of parents that they've spoken with and families they've spoken with. And so they know to get back in touch with you as soon as we have a determination and have a decision. So we will do that. So the amounts of the merit scholarships at this point, that's what we're still determining. That's what we're waiting to kind of go before finance and the board. And we kind of have that proposal and we'll see where those come back. So we don't have that answer at this point. That's definitely something that we would hope to have by the end of October, beginning of November. Do you need to fill out FAFSA to be considered? No, for merit scholarships. No, you do not. I would, however, encourage you to fill out the FAFSA because in addition to Pell Grants and loans, there is also work study available. So we have a number of students who work on campus during the time that they're here, and it really helps. I think students get to know other students. They're able to work in different departments. They're kind of able to acclimate into the university community. We have a number of students that work for us here in admissions. You certainly don't have to have work study to be a student worker or to have a position on campus. But because we do actually have student worker positions for those that don't qualify for work study. But I would definitely encourage everyone to file a FAFSA because I think what you may find as you're working your way through this process is when you're looking at the student loans, you're looking at interest rates and kind of doing some of that budgeting. You want to make sure you have the whole picture and you have as much information and access to those awards as possible. So I would encourage everyone to file the FAFSA. It's a free process. It probably takes 20, 30 minutes max to get it done. And so I would encourage everyone to do that. Okay, so the next question is about how hard is it to establish residency for your students? Can they apply for in-state in their future years? Understand as a freshman we are out of state, but not sure a student can become permanent resident in Maine. So typically a student that comes in as an out-of-state student, is an out-of-state student during the time that they're here. You cannot change that residency just based on the fact that you're here during the year attending school. Now we do have some programs, and you can go out to the website to Maine Maritime Academy and look at our tuition and fees. There are certain programs that for tuition purposes are considered to be, they're charged in-state versus out-of-state. So you can take a look at that and see if you're in one of those states and if your student is interested in one of those programs. So a couple of different things that we do there in terms of tuition and fees for students. And if when you're looking at those programs, you have questions about, well, what's the difference between this program or that program, you can talk to, again, your admissions representatives, and they can help walk you through what the differences are and what the career options are for those programs. So in past years, have all those receiving merit received the same amount, or does it vary by student? So in the past, it has varied by student. And so typically with most merit scholarships, and this is, again, expanding the conversation beyond even MMA, typically you award merit on a tier structure. So you have students who are considered like the 4.0, they're given a merit of X amount. Students who are the 3.7 to a 3.99, they're given this level of merit. And there's just a slight variation, but the goal is to give something to everyone kind of in that structure. And so it does vary by student. So not every student gets that same amount. Let me see, let me go back up here. Can you please repeat the date that merit scholarships are awarded? I thought you said of October, but it says that early action is due November 30th. Is there a difference? So early action is just your determination in terms of being admitted to the institution. The merit scholarships, once we make that determination at the end of October, for students that continue to apply throughout the year, because we will have applications coming in all the way through May, June, and July. And so the goal is to have merit dollars awarded and available for those students as they come in the door. So that's the process that we're looking at for this year. That's the proposal. So there's the difference. The early decision is an application deadline. And so it's basically getting information that you've been admitted at that earlier stage. So ACT is not looked at for the merit scholarships. It's not a requirement for application. So if after finishing to apply for the merit scholarships, is there something else I need to do or requirements to be awarded? No, so you actually don't have to do a separate application for any of the merit scholarships. That is a process that simply by applying to the institution, we will determine your eligibility for those scholarships. So that's a process that we do, and there is no separate application. Now there are, and we're going to email that information out. It's also, like I said, in this packet from FAME, there's a list of the different outside scholarships that are available. So that will go out to you, and those are the agencies that will help you look for scholarships based on your students' interest in school. There are even scholarships based on your heritage or based on your students' interest in athletics or music or whatever it may be, extracurricular activities and things like that. So the student puts in all this information, and then these aggregators will go and find the scholarship that your student may be eligible to receive. So in terms of the FAFSA opened October 1st. So the FAFSA is available now for students and parents to go out and file. So that's available. And like I said, federal student aid, they're also available. The 800 number is there if you have questions while you're filing. You can always call our financial aid office as well, but they have an 800 number, and they have someone who's always going to be available during the hours. And the hours are posted on the website as well in terms of when they are available. Let's see if there's any other questions. I think we got through a lot. I know a lot of this was about the merits. And again, like I said, we're hoping to get that information put together, pulling all the data, making sure that as an institution that they have all the information that they need before we do that. So one other thing, I want to go through some of these other questions. So we have a student on here who's asking about the GI Bill, the Yellow Ribbon Program, and other tuition assistance. The student says they're currently in the Navy and they'll be getting out by the beginning of next year and attending Maine Maritime Academy next fall. We do have a number of veterans who come to MMA and attend the institution. So I think that you'll find a good support network here. And it's great to have, I think, freshmen, 18-year-old students kind of coming in and having the opportunity to be in class and work side by side with veterans. So it works really well for everybody. So that's exciting. Just interested in how much the GI Bill will cover, as well as how the Yellow Ribbon program will assist with additional costs and fees. So here's what I'll say about this. So the registrar actually does your processing for these programs. What we can do is I can go in and probably see on there, because you're coming in your application, and get that contact information out to you. There's been a little bit of a change to the Yellow Ribbon program in terms of coverage and some of that. I was actually just talking to somebody about that today. And it also depends upon your service and your education and some of the different pieces that you've chosen while you're in the service. So we'll get that information out to you. We should be able to find that information. Or if you want to email me directly, anybody that's on this call, my email address, and I'll give you a chance to get a pen. I probably should have started the conversation with everybody make sure they have a pen or pencil and a pad of paper, but my email address is Kimberly, Kimberly .Reilly, Reilly. So again, that's Reilly at MMA.edu. So if you email me directly, if you think of anything after this call, if there's anything that was confusing, if you have any other questions, email me directly and I'll track down the information for you, and we'll get this information sent out to you. So that's the second question. So third question is, have you decided on merit scholarship standards? So we talked about that a little bit. It says, out of the students attending this college, what % of them have applied for financial aid and receive it? And that answer most recently was 94%. Pretty much any student at the institution who applies, and that's why we always encourage everyone to file the FAFSA. So when they file the FAFSA, there's either federal aid or state aid, outside scholarships, institutional aid. Our responsibility as an institution is to help you find a way to pay for your education. So whatever that may be and whatever that may look like, because every family's financial situation is different, but our responsibility and why we exist as a department for financial aid enrollment is to help you make this decision and to hopefully make it as seamless as possible for you and basically help you get into the institution and get started with your education. So the question is here, I live in Middlebury, Connecticut. Since I do not have a maritime academy in my state, do I qualify for in-state tuition for the VOT major? So Connecticut students qualifies for that New England regional tuition rate. And again, if you go to MMA's website and look under tuition rates, you'll see the programs, so vessel operations technology. So that's going to be listed out there. And that information will show you that for Connecticut and for Maryland or for Massachusetts and for some of the other as well, that information is out there. What opportunities beyond FAFSA are there? And this is from a Florida resident. Any specific to out-of-state students? What work-study programs are offered? So basically talking about the Florida Bright Futures program. So as a Florida resident, there is a merit-based Florida scholarship that's available. Unfortunately, I worked in Florida. I worked at Nova Southeastern University for a number of years. And unfortunately, that scholarship isn't transferable outside of the state of Florida, even if there isn't a program like this in Florida. So if you can't go to school in Florida and the only option is Maine or one of the maritime academies outside the state, you can't transfer that scholarship. But what I will tell you again is that we are here to help you and find ways to pay for your education to assist you with that application process. So we can look at helping you with that. And because if you're looking for the program, you're going to have to go out of state from the state of Florida. So it says, I don't have a precise question. Rather, would you guys be able to discuss about the general financial details regarding a student that's from out of state? For perspective, my home state is in Indiana. So I did look in Indiana to see, because there are certain states, not very many of them anymore, But there are certain states where if you're eligible for a state grant within that state as a resident of that state, you can transfer that state grant to another institution out of state and utilize those dollars. I did check. Indiana does not look like it's one of those states. Doesn't look like you can transfer any of those dollars that you may be eligible for as a resident. In terms of financial from out of state, so the Maine state grant is only open to Maine state residents. So the state grant option, depending on need, may not be eligible, it may not be available. But there is federal, again, through the FAFSA, whether it's Pell Grant, student loans, or work study, that information is available, and that's through the FAFSA. And again, our financial aid team is here to help you exhaust all resources and have conversations and find the best combination of financial aid options available to you to help you pay for your education. Let's see. I would like to apply to merit scholarships, but I do not have my letters of recommendation. Can I still apply? So you can start the application process and submit that information and then send us your letters of recommendation later. Again, the proposal is we're looking at the GPA piece. So that's, I would go ahead and get that sent in and then send in those letters of recommendation after you get that in. What is the link to apply for the merit scholarship? So there is no link to apply for that. That isn't anything that students have to apply. That's not something that you need to do. We will actually consider you for that as part of your application process. So there's no separate merit scholarship application. And then can my PA state grant transfer to MMA? That's a good question. The last school I worked for prior to coming to Maine was in Pennsylvania, and there are certain states that FIA will allow you to transfer. I'll have to look into that for you. So Liz, I'm gonna write your name down here and see if I've got your contact information. I will check that out and see whether you can transfer that FIA grant to one of the maritime academies, to MMA. I'll look that up for you tonight when we get off the call here, and I'll send that out to you. So a couple of questions here. So is merit for only 1 year at a time and then you reapply? So you will not have to reapply for merit. That's not part of we're not going to have students go through and have to do that. So typically what happens is the student is awarded that. And again, this is MMA, but then also to a broader extent to other institutions as well. In case you're wondering or looking, or that's having that conversation. So merit is typically you retain that, again, based on certain eligibility criteria. So if at the end of your freshman year, the requirement is that you have to have maintained this GPA, and that's all part of the proposal that we're putting out there. Student has to have maintained this GPA, and then the merit continues, the merit scholarship continues. Typically, there is a process in which students can come and have conversations with us or talk about if they're struggling with their academics. MMA is a very rigorous institution, but we also have a number of support opportunities, and we will be having conversations with students before it gets to a point that it may typically impact their merit. We start having those conversations with them during the year. The faculty, we have faculty in our building here that utilizes our office space to meet with students and offer tutoring if they need that. A lot of times it's a similar course that they took, whether it's calculus or whatever they took in high school, but being in the college environment, it's a transition, and they definitely do what they can to support, again, because we want to make sure the students are maintaining that eligibility for the merit. Is merit based on GPA or weighted GPA? So so part of what our system, our enrollment system, our admissions management system is designed to do is to basically normalize that GPA. So a student who's taking honors classes, a student who's taking, additional AP coursework or whatever it is, they may end up with a 5.2 GPA, and that gets normalized back to basically to a 4.0. So that a student who, if you're in the top tier at that 4.0, you're in the top tier, right? So it doesn't matter what you go over, we normalize it back to typically to the 4.0 so that you're in the top tier. which the reason for having that GPA and that weighted GPA is to show institutions, hey, the student did this work and is in this top tier and has done that. So that's typically, and again, that's typically at all institutions what they do. So that way there isn't this category that's here. It's easier to say, well, everybody that's a 4.0 and above is a 4.0, and that's typically what happens there. So, all right. So let me go back to any of the questions that we have and kind of reiterate for those that have joined the call after we got started. Again, for those of you that are on the call, we're going to be mailing out this. It is the Finance Authority of Maine. Even though you may not be your Maine resident, we're going to send this out to you. This is one of the neatest packages I've ever seen put together, because all your paperwork that you're going to have, put it in here. It's got a little folder and it's got a little piece that holds it together. There's a lot of information in here about budgeting. So when your child goes off to school for the first time, they're having to manage a credit card, or maybe they have a checking account. Lots of tools in here for a parent or a family to kind of start that conversation. We also have information in here about veterans. So we've got that brochure that's in there for the veteran that asked. And I want to show you one other piece in here that I want you all to be looking for, if I can find it. Let's see if I can find it here. So there is a program that I really think that parents and students, especially those that want to be mariners, that are looking to go into that career field, need to read and make sure that they see in here. So this is the brochure, and it's called The Value, and this is the Strategic Sea Lift Midshipman Program, right? So for those of you that are looking to do an unlimited license major, there is the $32,000 opportunity for students that you're going into this career field anyway. And so if you're going into this career field, definitely take a look at this brochure, take a look at what the requirements are. Many of the requirements, again, are what you will be doing in terms of your career. So this will be put in everybody's packet. So take a look at it. And then if you have questions, again, financial aid or admissions, we're happy to kind of have a more in-depth conversation with you about what this program is. So this is in there. This is in there as well in terms of, like I said, there's lots of different funding opportunities. And I don't want anyone to be intimidated or afraid or worried about this process. The other thing I will say is that I worked in the field of enrollment and financial aid for a number of years. And the cost and the proposition of borrowing money to go to school and the value of education and the return on that is I think a conversation that parents and families are finally kind of starting to raise their hand and say, hey, what's going on here? Is there really value in what's going on? Having worked for institutions where, having to talk about a psychology degree or having to talk about a different type of degree, not that there isn't value in those degrees, but sometimes talking about career outcomes and placement and finding a position that allows you to pay off the loans you borrowed to go to school. Those can be difficult conversations sometimes. And one of my reasons for wanting to come to MMA is because I believe strongly in this field and what students, we've been told again and again that these schools are hidden gems because of the opportunities that they give to students. So we do have students that borrow student loans. We do have parents that borrow loans that the students then when they graduate help pay off. And our default rate for loans is 2%, which is very low across the field of higher education in terms of our students are coming out of school. We have 90, I think we were the most recent, I talked to her services last week, 95% of our students are employed within 90 days of graduation. In addition, they're working in the summers and doing things in the summers and helping to pay for their tuition kind of as they move ahead as well. So there's a question, how many incoming freshmen do you admit each year? So last year, we had, I think, 1,200 applications, and we admitted right around 746 students. So that's typical of about where we are. Now, we are every year getting more and more applications. But again, if you meet the qualifications, then we don't really have a limit in terms of the admission piece, although we do have limited spaces in terms of coming to campus. So there's a little bit, we're limited because of Castine and some of that. So, but in terms of the admission process, that's what that piece is. So there's just a couple of different things in here in terms of if you're a Maine resident, talks a little bit about tax credits and different things. Same thing if you're a non-Maine resident, we'll talk about some of the federal income tax benefits and all that. So we'll get this sent out, like I said, to everyone. And again, I want to give you my email address. If you have a pen to write it down, my email address is Kimberly, KIMBERLY .Riley, REILLY @MMA.edu. So if you reach out to me, send an email to me, I will either, if I can answer your question or help you with it, I will do that. If not, then I will get you over to someone in financial aid. If it has to do with your veterans benefits, we'll get you in touch with the veterans coordinator in the registrar who does all of the filing of the applications through the VA Once system, and who will make sure that all that gets filed timely for you and make sure that there's no delay in any of those benefits. Get you over to financial aid, billing, whoever you need to talk to. If you want to talk to anyone in the regiments, we here at MMA, this is a division, like a community-wide affair in terms of enrollment and everyone kind of coming together to help students really make the decision, is this what they want to do? And then once you do that, you're part of this group of mariners and the individuals that are here to support that. So just want to allow anybody, if anybody has any other questions, anything that they might want to ask while we're on the call. And again, if you think of something tonight, you're like, oh, as soon as you get off the call, I should have asked that, send me an email, feel free to do that. It's easier if I would give you my cell phone number. My cell phone number is actually in my email, so when I respond to you, you'll have my cell phone. But it's easier if you send me the email, because then if I need to forward it to somebody and ask them to give you assistance, that's the easier thing to do. That's why I typically like to do it through. And also I like to keep track of the questions that we then get. So then we know, hey, we need to put this information or get this information out there. Because one of the things that we're also working on right now, again, is kind of making some of those improvements to the website and doing some of that as well. So at this point, in terms of a typical merits, I don't have that information because I don't know what we've got approval for. So we put together a proposal for students, and I know that that's the one thing that everybody wants to know and everyone's really dying to know. And I apologize that I can't give you more information at this point, but I can assure you that as soon as we know, like I said, Elizabeth and Kate have they have families on speed dial ready to reach out. As soon as we have that information, we will share that. Okay, thanks, Jose. Thank you. Yes, so I forgot to mention that this webinar is being recorded and it will be shared, so you can refer back to that with information. Again, if for some reason we look on the record, I think we checked everybody beforehand to make sure we have a complete address, or if perchance there's a different address you want this to go to. Then, like I said, email me and let us know, or we will be in touch with you if we think that for some reason we can't get it to you at the address that we have. But I checked with financial aid today and we have these ready to go, and we'll get them packaged up tomorrow and out in the mail. So tomorrow's Thursday. So I'm hoping you'd have it by Monday at the latest. That might be a little optimistic, but that's my hope. So like I said, we'll put that in there. And if there's anything in here that you get that you don't see or that you're expecting to see, then make sure to reach out to us and let us know. And like I said, as soon as we know something on merits, we will be in touch with families and let you know. So yes, it's Kimberly.Riley@MMA.edu. That's perfect. Yep, that's it. That's absolutely it. And like I said, even if it's at any point in the future, that's the point of contact. And that information will be in here as well. We'll give a list of information of who to contact to get in touch with, and different contacts for the department. And I just want to let you know too, so part of our position here in enrollment is our responsibility is to get the student through this process so that they're ready to start classes. So that's what we're here for. That's part of our customer service commitment to students and the families. So you also have my number that if something comes up and you're like, I didn't really get the response here that I thought I would, or I didn't, then please feel free to reach out to me as well, because I'm here to help in that regard. Constantly looking to improve processes or remove barriers, or kind of, make sure that there isn't this kind of a roadblock for students and families. So Catherine, if you want to email me directly, I can put you in touch with our Vice President of Student Affairs, and she can talk to you about the COVID vaccines and all of that. That would probably be the best thing to do. So yeah, if you want to send that to me, again, it's kimberly.riley@mma.edu. So yeah, so my email address is kimberly.reilly@mma.edu. And I think someone just sent me an email. I love it. That's great. So yeah, so email me, and Catherine, like I said, if you want to email me, I'll get you over to the VP of Student Affairs so she can answer specific questions that you might have about that, because that's actually something that's handled from her office, and she can give you all the updates and everything that's going on and all that information. She's really the best point of contact for that. Okay. Anybody have anything else before we go? Anyone? Okay, so thank you. I have enjoyed this. I love kind of getting, even though I didn't get to see anyone's face, or but if you haven't been to campus, we do have an MMA experience that's coming up on October 23rd. Even if you've been to campus and you want to come back and see us again, go on the ship. We have the virtual, all the different labs. It's a day. Like on the last one we had 2 weeks ago, parents and families, they had so much fun. It was really, really a good time. So again, go on the website, MMA Experience. If you want to register or send me an email, we can sign up for that. If you want to come and do a ship, we're also going to be sending out information to when the ship launches. So the ship is getting ready to go out on cruise. So we're going to live stream when the ship launches away from the dock and all that and leaves. So that's quite the experience. The parents sometimes will come down and see their students off on their adventure. And then we're also looking at doing some content and having students and faculty kind of share with us via probably our social media. And then we'll push some of that out via email as well, what their experience is like on the ship. So ships and classrooms open now for tours. Yep. So that's going on now. And then also that MMA experience, we go a little more in depth with some of the different labs and the different areas that you can tour. Masks are required. Yep. And so we're doing masks for that. So, okay. So again, I hope to see you all here. If you haven't been here, come and visit and see what we're all about. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. Thanks for spending your evening with me. And I will talk with you and hopefully get to meet most of you in person soon. So thank you very much. Thank you. Have a good night.